Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Stuff I Find Interesting. We are going to go right through this. This is part 2 of episode 11. I've made some adjustments to the sound. Hopefully it's a little bit better. People can hear. I'm also speaking up because I'm absolutely capable of speaking up for sure, no doubt. So I ended abruptly last time, and I was talking about gin, basically. Gin's been around since 70 AD. And in 1700s, gin was like very prolific in British society, and people went crazy. So there was a bunch of tax breaks that William III instituted in an effort to sort of make more money, make themselves more modern. I don't know. There's probably a lot more to it. But everybody was like, woohoo! And a pint of gin was cheaper than a pint of beer. Now, back then, everybody drank beer really more than water because the beer was okay. The beer had been homogenized in a sense, and the water you didn't always know. I'm speaking more about cities. In the countryside, obviously, you'd have access to cleaner water. You could probably maybe have a well, you'd have a stream. But in a city, like say London or something, you wouldn't, water wouldn't really be a thing. I mean, not like that. But anyway, people started drinking gin instead of beer or water, and everybody got freaking drunk, basically. And everybody was just out on the streets, out on the Thames, just drinking beer. But what started happening is, after about 5 years of this nonsense, is England went, hey, yeah, everybody's drunk all the time. This is kind of a problem. Nothing's getting done. Nobody's working. And people started to go insane. They started to die. There was an increase in criminal activity, the breaking up of families. It had a huge impact on society. Not to mention that people were putting things in the gin like turpentine, sulfuric acid, and sawdust. So sometimes what you were drinking, I mean, it was gin, but it had a lot of other crap in it. So it's not like the FDA really existed at that time. So then a distiller's license was introduced. It had a price tag that was so high that only 2 official licenses were issued in the next 7 years. So for the next 7 years, England was like, whoa. All right, we got to chill, guys. And then they went back to drinking beer. You can read this article. It'll be in the links, as always. And it kind of goes into a little bit more about gin. And again, I apologize for the ads. But sometimes it's the only way to get content. Now, before I continue with what is this place called? The Schwinendong Smelter. For anybody watching for the first time, my name is Laura. I live in New York. What else can I say? I find the world very interesting. I like learning about new things. I always have. I was the kid with, all the library books walking around the hallway. Knowledge. I just love it. I love learning things. I love the world. I think the world is exciting. The people in the world is exciting. I think there's a lot of wonder to be had. I think there's a lot of curiosity still that we should embrace and have. And that's kind of why I do this, because I want to introduce new things to people. Because introducing new things and absorbing new things can sometimes make us think in new and different ways. Regardless, even if it's just a picture, right? That picture leads to something else, and suddenly, I don't know, you're having some kind of moment, maybe you have the urge to explore. You say, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm not that person, actually. So that's a little bit about me. I'm pretty unremarkable, honestly. I work as a dishwasher, and I don't know. No, I don't work as a dishwasher. So the Shuangnandong smelter is an industrial complex, basically, and it's now not one that you can get into anymore. It used to be you could go into it, you could explore, but in 2020 they put up this big ass fence so people can't get in there. And it's also kind of falling apart. It's not really safe, but there's a lot of cool pictures to be found online of this place, and there's various different sort of buildings so you can explore the different ones. Not to mention, like, if you look here, there's just like that one big building. I mean, that's huge. And it's a place where tourists used to go to a lot more, but not as much anymore. So they're trying to figure out a way to make it so that tourists can still go there and not like the way they have been. So here we just have some more pictures that you can look at of the complex. There's a lot to be found online, because when it was able to be explored, people took lots and lots and lots of pictures. And yeah, so that is Shuangdong, the industrial place. Yeah, I sort of faded out there for a minute. I was thinking about running around. Okay, so ancient medieval architecture. This is a blog, and this particular episode is about medieval weapons, and I really dig medieval weapons and the ingenuity. And if you think about how weapons evolved, okay, well, how did weapons evolve? So, someone probably first threw a stick at somebody, right? Some of the earliest weapons were really just, were crude bows, probably, because, wood can be, kind of bouncy. You put some, I don't know what they would use, like maybe deer gut or something. Didn't they use gut to, like, string bear gut? I don't know. But anyway, this is very cool. It's got a part with trebuchets in it too, and I think trebuchets are, look at that fancy thing. This Roman crossbow based on the Greek gastrofets. I don't know what that is. Holy cow. Okay. Learn something new, see? Okay, we've got some of the trebuchets, siege towers, antique ram constructed by Dides with a beam thrown into the wall with great force by means of a thick and elastic string pulled by the turnstile. So this is one of the oldest siege devices, the battering ram. So the siege device is like an ancient machine that was used to, attack stuff, because you had to usually get entry into a fortified area, so you had to have ways to do that. A battering ram would do that. Here's another battering ram. This one would go crash. It required a crew. They would pull it back. There'd be a whole bunch of guys, and it would go and crash right through. So, kind of cool stuff. I found it very interesting, which is why I'm putting it here. Next, we're actually getting towards we're actually kind of getting towards the end, to a subject that's actually kind of close to my heart, and that is mental health. And as I was looking for vintage ads for mental health, because some of them used to be very tasteless and kind of weird, I found this where it says "Say no to crack." But the thing that I want to make reference to is the dog. That's McGruff the crime dog. Now, why am I showing you McGruff the crime dog? Because when I came across it today, I said, because it triggered a bunch of memories. Why did it trigger a bunch of memories? Well, story time. When I was in the Marine Corps, for about a month, I played McGruff the crime dog at events. So the Marines were like affiliated with the schools. We would go in there, or people that volunteered to do so would go in and like work with the kids and be like a mentor and stuff. And because I was in that program, they asked if I wanted to be McGruff the crime dog for a month. It was like a kind of an extra duty. But it got me like around, like general and stuff. And it just, I don't know, it seemed like a really cool thing to do. So I was McGruff the crime dog. But it was in 29 Palms. It was the middle of summer. It was like 109 degrees, and the stuff I did was usually like outdoor fairs. So I would do like an outdoor carnival in a big dog head and the trench coat and the slacks. It was really something. But the funny part is the thing that makes me chuckle is when I first did this, I didn't tell anybody that I took on this responsibility. So during the carnival, I like ran around and I like messed with people because they didn't know it was me. So I could like, smack them or, grab them or whatever. Anyway, but I wouldn't do that today. I wouldn't just run around grabbing people. This was like in the 90s. There's like consent and all that. I wouldn't just do that. But back then, yeah. Plus I was like 19, 20. Everybody was grabbing everybody. All right. More psychiatric stuff. So these are some ads from the 70s, and this is about Thorazine for violent patients. Mischief for MBD. This is an ad for Ritalin from the 70s. Stuff for insomnia, Dalmane. I've never heard of that, but I'm pretty sure it's not good. Where's the other one? Flavil. Haldol. Just these crazy ads. This one. It's no fun to live with a wife with nerves. Right? That's just wild. Thorazine helps return psychotic patients to reality. I would not advise to ever, ever, ever take Thorazine. Ever. No. So, why am I talking about mental health? I'm talking about mental health because this is the topic that I'm just going to finish off this part 2 with. And that is various stories about mental health back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, because I think it's an excellent topic, and I think it's kind of a dark moment in history. Pretty much anywhere you go, England, America, everybody, all societies have struggled with how do you deal with mental health? How do you deal with the mentally ill? What do you do? And I think we've come a long way, but I think we have to probably go just a little bit further, for sure. Because there's a lot that we don't understand, especially like with antidepressants. Here, take this antidepressant. Well, what does it do? Oh, it's a dopamine reuptake inhibitor or whatever, blah blah blah, serotonin. I don't even fucking know, norepinephrine. And you're like, what? And then you Google and you look up what is the mechanism of this particular drug, and you get a pile of a wall of text that basically means nothing. And you're like, wow, okay. And meanwhile, it's shown that substances like LSD, magic mushrooms, that there's and ketamine, that there's stuff in there that does something for depression, seemingly a lot more than what we are taking. And I'm not saying we should all go out and do a bunch of ketamine. I'm just saying there's a lot that we don't know. And the reason why we don't know it is because it's more profitable to sell those drugs. Now, mental health. Why do I care so much about mental health? Well, my grandmother worked in mental health. She worked in a mental health facility. And the bus used to let me off. And when I was in elementary school, where she worked on a locked ward, because it was the 70s, like nobody cared. So I'd get off the bus, I'd walk up to the mental health ward, I'd knock on the door, I'd go up in the elevator, and, they'd open it up because it was locked. And, the nurse would poke her head out and say, oh, you're Laura, you're here, let me get your Nana. And they would open the door, and I would go in, and I would hang out on this locked ward with all these crazy people. I mean, we're talking really crazy people. And that was like totally normal, I guess, but it really kind of exposed me, in addition to my own family's craziness, to mental health and how big of an issue it is, and how it can affect people and affect generations, and how it's talked about and yet not talked about. Like it's almost talked about too much and yet not talked about at all. I don't know how to explain it. But look at this place. Look at how grand this is. This is just, it's a beautiful structure. It was finished in 1904. It's the West Riding Asylums. West Riding Asylum is the name of it, the acute hospital. And I forgot why I saved this particular article. It doesn't seem to be very exciting. I think I just wanted to show you the picture of how grand it was. And here's another thing. See, this is what happens when I know. I thought I prepared, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I just got yeah, this is just a personal, someone looked into the history and just wrote a bunch of stuff that I thought was really good and really interesting. There are there was a lot of mistreatment in these places, which is one of the reasons why they closed down. But then all these people just got set loose on the street. So it's like, what it ended up happening is people were either mistreated, just like basically left in beds, or, treated with therapy that was definitely not therapeutic, or they were put to work for basically free labor. And neither one of those is very good. Not to say that there weren't good places. I'm sure there were. There might have been places where there was a, director or directors that were forward thinking, that were like, hey, we need to treat these people with dignity and ensure that they have a safe place that they can call home for the rest of their lives, because they can't be in society. And there's different levels of crazy. You've got criminal crazy, and then you've just got, just can't function crazy. Not, wouldn't hurt a fly, but, can't really exist. There's it's a sad thing that happened. But anyway, we're going back to South Dakota. Remember we were talking about South Dakota last time? See, everything's connected. History of Hiawatha. This was so they found 1,000 unmarked graves of indigenous children on the grounds of former Canadian border schools. And America went, ooh, that's really bad. Ooh. And we did the same thing. We've done the same thing. By we, I mean Americans. And there are some graves in South Dakota. There were 25 Indian boarding schools, and there was also a place called the Hawaiian Indian Insane Asylum, and there were unmarked graves that were found at this asylum. Lots of them. And it's now been turned into a golf course, and between the 4th and the 5th fairways is a very small cemetery with the people who died, the Native Americans that died at the Hiawatha Insane Asylum, which you can see in this picture right here. And they know of 120 people. There's probably a lot more people. They lived in deplorable conditions. In all, there were 400 Native inmates. They were housed there over 3 decades, and everybody knew that if you got sent to Canton, that's what they called it. It was a death sentence. You didn't really come out. All that remains of the asylum building today is part of the front entrance, which has been incorporated into a sign for the golf course. A few original barns are also still standing. However, several keepers of the Hiawatha Indian Insane Asylum are making sure that what took place here is not forgotten. People vanished out of boarding schools. People went to jail and didn't come back. People didn't know where their relatives were, so it's still a shock. It's like finding out you had someone in your family who was in a concentration camp. The concentration camp analogy is not far-fetched. There is actually some evidence that Hitler studied what we did with the reservations, the boarding schools, and the canton to figure out how to create the concentration camps in Germany. It's a worldwide story, not just a local story. It's not an insane asylum, it's a prison. People are shackled to beds with chamber pots, even though it was a state-of-the-art with toilets and running water. The place was caked in soot. People were lying in feces, maggots crawling on them. Disease ran rampant and untreated. So it goes on. I'm not going to read any more about it, but it's a hard thing, right? It's a conversation that needs to happen in all different parts of society, in all different groups and cultures, because we need to know what to do about mental health from a criminal perspective, from a social perspective, from a family perspective, from a professional perspective. It's just so important. I just kind of feel like everybody should go to therapy. But that's just me. I've had a lot of therapy, and it helped a lot. Okay, here we go. This is from 1982, Swing for the Retarded. This is Aged Like Milk. Today in Well Men Things That Age Like Milk, this t-shirt from a charity golf tournament in 1982. Swing for the Retarded. And then we have witty banter. But the reason why I like the witty banter is because it brings up conversation about mental health and autism. Someone says neurospicy. Yeah, neurospicy. Neurodivergence and autism. It's always interesting in the Reddit comments. I always learn a lot. And I usually giggle. So with that, we are going to close. Tomorrow will be part 3, which is the conspiracy part, and we are going to be talking about... Yeah, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to tell you, we're going to talk a little bit about ancient history and like Americans, the original people that lived in America. How long ago did people live in America? How long ago did we live and thrive in America? Yeah, so I hope everybody has a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.